So, Patriots, we've seen dictators fall. We've seen Trump's cabinet picks under fire. And we've seen Biden just did exactly what we warned he would do with presidential pardons. The mainstream media is spinning all of this, but tonight we're giving you the common sense truth. Welcome to Common Sense for America. I'm Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator, and tonight we're cutting through the noise to bring you what really matters. We'll expose the real story behind Assad's fall and reveal why the deep state is panicking about Trump's appointees. And we'll show you the stark difference between Biden's family favoritism, I should say the Biden crime family's favoritism, and Trump's promise of true justice. First, let's talk about the fall of Assad in Syria. After 14 years of iron-fisted rule, Bashar al-Assad's regime has collapsed. Now, this follows 20 years of rule by his father. Now, Biden's team is rushing to take credit, but Patriots, there's more to this story.
We were in Aleppo this morning, which up until 2 weeks ago was regime held, which meant Bashar al-Assad and his forces were in control. That, of course, fell to rebel groups, the rebel group known as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. HTS is considered a terrorist organization by the United Nations, by the U.S., and other Western powers. But they've now ousted Bashar al-Assad. They're now in control of Damascus, and global powers are really trying to figure out how they work with HTS.
HTS, who has taken control of Syria, was and is a designated terrorist group by the United States and other Western countries. It has its origins originally in Al-Qaeda and later in ISIS, but has of late renounced those two organizations and announced that they intend to let Syria and the Syrian people be a diverse society, honoring all minorities and protecting all minorities. Now, this is welcome news if it's true. We, the U.S., we, the Western allies, and particularly Israel, need to give HTS a chance to make good on their words. There should be a period of dialogue and even support, and we should continue to support HTS as long as they adhere to what they have said, a diverse society, respecting of minorities, respecting of minority religions, a free society governed by open and free elections.
The end of this regime is a defeat for all who enabled its barbarity and its corruption, none more than Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. So this moment presents a historic opportunity, but it also carries considerable risks. History shows how quickly moments of promise can descend into conflict and violence. As our precision strikes over the weekend demonstrate, we are determined not to let that happen, and will continue to protect our personnel against any threats from any quarters. The Syrian people have endured so much suffering. We have work to do to ensure that they endure no more.
Secretary of State Blinken said all the right things. What he didn't say is what's troubling to me, and he didn't acknowledge the role of the Israelis in bringing about the downfall of al-Assad. It's the Israeli army, the Israeli Defense Force, called the IDF, and their intelligence service called Mossad, that were the ones that really brought about this change in Syria. The Israelis were attacked on October 7th. That attack will go down in history as one of the greatest strategic blunders by any force, not unlike the Japanese attack of Pearl Harbor. A great strategic blunder in that it brought all of Israel together to defend itself and to defeat its enemies, and they did defeat Hamas and went on to defeat Hezbollah, two key surrogates who had supported the al-Assad regime in Syria, who were effectively destroyed by the IDF and Mossad and could therefore not act on behalf of Syria. At the same time, the Russians, who were key supporters of the Syrian regime, could not act because their resources were stretched so thin by their foolish attack on Ukraine. Iran itself could not respond because the IDF and the Israeli Air Force had completely destroyed the Syrian air defense system and most of their heavy weapons and their ability to produce long-range missiles and rockets. So the Syrians were left with none of their traditional support. And al-Assad had to escape in the night to Russia, where Putin was forced by circumstances to give him asylum. But for our nation, the United States, and Secretary Blinken to imply that we, the United States, had a significant role in bringing about the Syrian revolution and the overthrow of the dictatorship of al-Assad is wrong. Let's apply some common sense here. Assad didn't fall because of Biden's leadership. He fell because the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, and Israeli intelligence, Mossad, had reduced Syria's allies, Hamas and Hezbollah, almost to ashes. The real question we should be asking is, who's going to fill the power gap in the Mideast? Will it be Israel? Will it be America? Will it be an alliance of Mideast countries? Now, history tells us that when America shows weakness, our enemies swiftly step in. And we should not let that happen this time. We should support our ally Israel and help them form alliances with moderate Mideast countries. We should support their effort to cut the head off the snake in Iran, including destroying what is left of Iran's air force, destroying their heavy weapons, and destroying their ability to produce nuclear weapons. Reports tell us that they have enough plutonium to make 4 bombs. We need to destroy these facilities immediately. And now some will argue there's still room for more diplomacy to have the UN step in. I think the time is now to strike. Now, speaking of power shifts, patriots, wait until you see how the deep state is trying to block President-elect Trump from putting real fighters in his administration. The mainstream media is in full meltdown over President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. They're screaming about vetting. What they're really scared of is losing control and losing power. Look at this timeline. In just 2 weeks, President-elect Trump has nominated more America First patriots than Biden did in 4 years. But here's our common sense take. When you're draining the swamp, you're bound to make some waves. The deep state doesn't want fighters like Kash Patel at the FBI or Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon. They want controllable bureaucrats who will play by their rules, by the way things have been done in the past. What all of Trump's nominees have in common, I believe, is number 1, loyalty to Trump, and number 2, loyalty to the goal of draining the swamp and service to the American people. Patriots, ask yourselves, would you rather have perfect vetting and perfect paperwork, or would you rather have perfect loyalty to the American people? I personally prefer the latter, and I'm willing to take some imperfect paperwork to get to that. But if you want to see the clearest example of the difference between the Trump and the Biden administrations, look no further than their approach to presidential pardons.
Trump described the prosecution of his supporters as corrupt and did not rule out pardoning those who had already pled guilty, including those accused of acting violently. Hopes among January 6 defendants and their supporters for broad-based clemency have been growing over the past week.
Mr. Biden, do you think he can get a fair trial?
It comes after President Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter, marking a reversal from his pledge not to interfere with his son's criminal cases. Biden said Hunter deserved a pardon because he was the victim of political persecution, an argument Trump will likely use to justify mass pardons. Experts told Reuters they were worried broad amnesty for January 6 defendants would wrongly incentivize the fomenting of unrest or even violence on behalf of a president.
In a stunning reversal, Joe Biden has pardoned his son Hunter after repeatedly promising he wouldn't interfere. Now, there was a time when I believed that. Unfortunately, call me a fool, but I believed the president would not lie so blatantly. Meanwhile, President-elect Trump has promised day one pardons for January 6th defendants. The contrast couldn't be more clear. Biden pardons his son from legitimate criminal charges, while Trump promises to free Americans who were politically targeted because they exercised their right of free speech to protest at the Capitol building. Now, admittedly, some of them got out of hand and were violent in their activities, but the vast majority of them were simply there exercising their right of free speech. Over 1,500 Americans were charged, many held in third world conditions in solitary confinement without benefit of a day in court, all because they dared to question the election, which I think is a free speech issue. Which pardon serves justice? Ask yourself, which of these pardons really serve justice? The one protecting a privileged political family, the Biden crime family, as Trump calls them, or one defending Americans who stood up for their beliefs? Tonight, we've seen three perfect examples of the difference between political games and true leadership, from Syria to the cabinet to presidential pardons. It all comes down to putting America first. Patriots, if you believe in common sense leadership, hit that subscribe button and share this video with your friends and colleagues, your family members. The mainstream media won't tell these truths, but we will. This is Bruce Rutherford for Common Sense for America. Until next time, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.